With the 2024 NFL Draft right on our doorstep, we're going to take a look at a few more mock drafts this week on the Wandering Buffalo podcast.
You're now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your host, Justin Goddard.
Bills Mafia, welcome into another episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show on the Buffalo FAMBase podcast network. My name is Justin, and I will be your host today. And we've done it. We've pretty much arrived at draft season. All the work and off-season stuff that we've been watching, looking at, prospective players, mock drafts, all that. It all comes to a head starting on Thursday with the first round. So I just want to take this one more episode to go through a few mock draft scenarios. Again, if you listened last week, I'm not going crazy on these. I'm not going to do full 7-round mocks. Just for starters, my knowledge is not going 7 rounds deep. And with how much stuff can happen in the first few rounds, it's really, really wild trying to project out that far. I'm looking more at the first 4 rounds today and just kind of, again, playing out scenarios. Again, these aren't predictive. I will say I'm going to put a little bit more of what I would do or what I would like to see twist happen on us today. Might not align with, what everybody in Bills Mafia is looking for. But I think that kind of still gives you a little bit of a realistic approach to it while we're kind of able to look at how far the talent falls in certain positions. I will say that overall, just, without the X's and O's involved, kind of my macro view of it, would end up being my ideal situation would be trading down. I love the idea of bringing in one of those top receivers, particularly Rome Odunze. I really struggle with the amount of assets that you have to part with to be able to get up that high in the draft. And it would be great to infuse that right into this roster. But when we kind of look at some of the off-season medicine that Brandon Beane has taken this year, in clearing cap and finding replacements and kind of resetting the roster, I don't think it's going to all be done this year. But we look at some of the holes that were opened up, and yes, they've been replaced to a certain extent. We're not really going into the draft with glaring needs outside of receiver. But I look at this year, this offseason, as Beane is setting up for keeping that window open for the second half of Josh Allen's career. And I think in order to effectively do that, you need swings at the plate. You need these first and second round picks to be able to get impact players to replace, the aging starters that you've just lost, the aging starters that are coming up, the contracts that you're not able to renew or don't want to re-sign players. So I think with all of that, and the more I've kind of worked through these scenarios, it's really hard for me to find a situation where the trading up option is going to tickle my fancy for anything outside of, going to get your franchise quarterback. The small trade ups, if we were to go from like 28 to 20, something like that, and you're going after, say, Brian Thomas Jr., those are ones that I can live with. But the scenarios where we're getting up to like 9 with the Bears, it's just too much for my stomach to get up there. Now, that being said, if we're on draft day on Thursday and Brandon Beane makes that swing, I'm at least temporarily going to forget everything I said. Maybe kind of forget about it until we get to this time next year, because I'll be so excited for that player. But just for me, it's a tough spot to be in. The trading down situation is just kind of over the course of doing several mocks and just seeing the way it shook out. I have it between an edge rusher and a wide receiver as kind of like the top need. So it depends on how it goes here. I think the big difference here is the talent pool at the defensive end position is a lot smaller than the wide receiver position. And I kind of look at it as, if I go, say, edge round 1 or round 2, I'd be looking to double dip at wide receiver the next 2 picks, and depending on who's there, of course. And I think you have 2 real swings at the plate rather, to get hits on those players, versus, if you're attacking edge later in the draft. I think it's already difficult to find like dominant edge rushers once you get past like the first half of the first round. It's one of those, priority positions that the really talented players go super early. So I think we're already at a disadvantage there. And if you're waiting till the 3rd, 4th round, you're looking at kind of adding depth this year and not anybody that's going to have any sort of, material impact. So a couple of things to keep in mind there. I'm going to fire up the drafts. Again, I'm using the Pro Football Network mock draft simulator here. So I have them going for 4 rounds here. I will explore some trade options. Like I said, my best case scenario here is the board falls to us at 28. There's a bunch of players that we still like, and we're able to trade back and pick up a 3rd round pick in the process. We're going to go ahead and just start this off. I will say that the one caveat today is we didn't have it here, but if they have anybody other than Caleb Williams going 1st overall, I'm just going to restart the draft. I think that one's been pretty locked in for a very long time, so I don't see anything different happening. And we see some of the receivers go. Brian Thomas is one that you often see fall down to the Bills' range. He went pretty early there. And I'm going to go right to the edge rushers. I think it's already pretty well thinned out. So yeah, Marshawn Nealand is somebody that I would like in the 2nd round. Don't hate Darius Robinson, but the guys I'm looking for, and maybe this would be a situation where Brandon Beane would explore a trade up and we're all going to get excited for a receiver, but Chop Robinson going 1 pick ahead of us. If he were to sit there at 28, that would be my pick here. The other edge guys are going super early here. And this is even with, tackle going at 2 overall, kind of pushing some depth down. Dallas Turner and Latu going 8, 9 respectively. And then Jared Verse going 19 to the Rams. Also, if we got up to that late teens, early 20s, and it was for an edge, I wouldn't be super mad at that either. Like I said, it's just the way the talent drops off at that position. It's going to be pretty tough if we don't get one in the 1st round. And then we're looking at, what do you have in Von Miller this year? And it's a pretty thin room that we have right now. So we got 2 trade offers. Cleveland dropping us down to 54 and getting pick 85. Getting a 2025 2nd and 4th back. That's a little bit further than I'd want to go down in the 2nd round here. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to take that trade. I think that gives you some assets to work with. We do pick up the 3rd round pick. And we're going to rock with that and see where it goes. I don't love doing drafts where I go crazy with, packaging up other picks and moving back up and down the board. Try to keep it fairly simple. I think these mock drafts with anything, it's a tool to give you an idea. So like if this is about the trade that the Bills were offered on draft night, then this is about what the trade is going to look like. Now I can package up, 4 fourth-round picks next year, or 2 4s this year and 4 next year. You can do all kinds of, wizardry to get back up in earlier in the second round, anything like that. I'm going to keep it nice and simple here, keep it realistic, and we're just going to accept that trade. We're going to move back to 54 and kind of see. Like I said, I think that's going to be further than I would want to move down. There are still a ton of players that I like on the board. It should be this early. But just watching all these players that are going to go in front of us, Troy Franklin just going. And honestly, for how far we dropped down here, it's not shaking out terribly for some of the players that I'm looking at. I guess I just accidentally accepted another trade back from 54, which is really unfortunate because that was Xavier Leggett. Technical error here. We're just going to rock with it for now. We're going to do another draft or two, so we'll see what happens there. Quite unfortunate there. But we get down to, now we have pick 59 and pick 60 back-to-back. First and foremost, again, looking at the edges and the defensive tackles. Brandon Dorless, not somebody I hate. Austin Booker, I think has some potential, but I think somebody that we could wait on. We're going to wait on that right now and see what happens. Hopefully we don't, drop too far down. But moving over to the defensive tackles, Chris Jenkins there right at the top is standing out to me. And this is somebody that I talked about last week. If he were the pick at even 28, maybe a slight trade back, I wouldn't be all that surprised. So seeing him here at 59, we're going to go ahead and make that the pick. Right back on the board with pick 60. And we're going to go back to the wide receivers here. And like I said, we see how far off the defensive end position has fallen. And there's still, just a ton of talent here at wide receiver that I'd be comfortable with. Just going down here, Roman Wilson, Ricky Pearsall, Jalen McMillan. I mean, all of those players I'd be comfortable with here. I think I'm going to go with Roman Wilson here. I think that's a guy that I haven't added too often. Give us a little diversity in the draft. And then we'll see, we're up next again at 85. And just kind of keeping an eye on the edge position and the wide receivers. Like I said, I am all for the double dip at wide receiver here. I do want to see, what remains available at the edge group. Mohamed Kamara is somebody that I'd be very interested in, and he is still there. They have him rated down at pick 190. I see him as a, first 3 rounds kind of guy. For the sake of this, I'm going to go Austin Booker here. This is the guy that I said I like him. I think he could fit well with the team. And we waited on him, and he ends up still being there. So far we've added a defensive tackle and an edge, which I think is really important for this team going forward. We also got the first of our receivers in there. And then for me, I would be looking at getting another receiver. I think this is about the range where I'd want to do it. And then kind of going forward in the draft, my biggest priority is maybe getting a safety in there. And then it's just kind of rounding out depth, going best player available, all that type of stuff. We do need to add a running back to this team, maybe 2. That's not a huge priority to me in the draft. I think we've seen the Bills do it over the last few years, kind of adding guys like Damian Harris, Latavius Murray, in the past, TJ Yeldon. There's been all kinds of guys that we've added that were kind of like these 1-2 year deals. And I'm okay with going that approach. I think what the Bills really need at running back is kind of a power back. And I think you see those guys end up on teams, every year being undrafted free agents. So I want to take a look at the safeties real quick. Just Malik Mustafa is kind of who I was keeping an eye on for this pick. Not much really popping out there. So for me, the safeties and the ranges, I would want to take safeties. I think we kind of missed the boat on that. Which for me, I'm okay with that. Just I've talked so much in the past about what McDermott and Bobby Babich have been able to do with these late round picks, even undrafted players. So I'm not overly concerned with the safety position. I think I trust them with safeties and cornerbacks more than, really any other position on the team. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in another receiver here. Javon Baker went, which is unfortunate. That's, somebody that I've been keeping an eye on. But Jamari Thrash is somebody that I haven't put on the team yet. You see here, explosive athlete. I think that kind of gives us a speed dynamic. I think we're not just looking for speed, but the separation. I think he'd be a good pick here in the 4th round, and we still have another 4th rounder coming up, and that's going to be pick 133. And I'm going to go back to the defense here. I'm going to do this pick because I like it. I have my doubts that the Bills may not even have him on the draft board anymore. There was an arrest probably about a month ago. But T'Vondre Sweat's sitting there. We're kind of like tail end of round 4. We re-signed Daquan Jones, but he's getting a little bit older. We brought in Austin Johnson. He's on a 1-year deal. Just big boy in the middle for where we're getting him. I like that pick there. We'll see kind of, what happens with the legal issues and all that. I have a feeling that he might actually drop that far. We'll see how it plays out. So this draft, we had Chris Jenkins, Roman Wilson, Austin Booker, Jamari Thrash, and T'Vondre Sweat. Also adding a 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round pick for next year. Like I said, there's a couple spots in this draft where I probably would have, accepted the moving down and tried to get back up in another spot for a couple of these guys. For me, that's always really challenging with a mock draft. I like to play with the trades that are offered to me when you start, individually picking teams and what their needs are and what they're trading away from. It gets a little squirrely. So overall, pretty pleased with that draft. I'm going to fire up another one here. And I said if Caleb Williams doesn't go first, we're restarting it, but he went 2nd. Jaden Daniels went first. That's okay with me. Quarterback needs to be the first position off the board. I had a couple that I was doing this week that had Joe Alt going first, and they got really weird on me. I know it's part of playing the mock draft game. There's some randomness to it and some weird things that pop up. We'll just kind of take them as it goes. So just looking through here, Marvin Harrison Jr. pretty continuously going at 4. Malik Neighbors at 5. Roma Dunze going to Atlanta at 8. Dallas Turner 9. We got Latu going at 16. Jared Verse 19 to the Rams. Chop Robinson going to the Steelers. Brian Thomas the Dolphins. And So right now we're in a very similar situation to last time. The edge group kind of falling off for us real quick again. Defensive tackle, love Johnny Newton here, and I think this might be a situation again, similar to what I said last time when I took Chris Jenkins in the second round. I think if Johnny Newton's there at 28, I don't think the Bills are going to trade away from that. I'm going to take a look at what the offers are here. I don't like dropping all the way down to 76 with Denver. Do love picking up their first next year because I don't think they're going to be very good. 49 is something that would interest me. Again, picking up assets for next year, but really trying to get a third round pick back in this trade back. And we get it there with Seattle, down to pick 81. I don't want my first pick to be pick 60. So in this scenario, we're going to stay right where we are, and we're going to take Johnny Newton. A.D. Mitchell off the board right after us. Keon Coleman to the Panthers. Marshawn Nealand is somebody I was hoping might make it back to us the second round. See some of the receivers start going here. Zach Frazier is a name that I've seen coming up a ton for the Bills recently. It's just like a very Billsy player. Offensive line and with the first pick. I don't know how a lot of people would feel about that, but it's something that's out there. And I'm going to take a look at where we're at here. Perfect. We're right here at pick 60, and Xavier Leggett's on the board, and got to lock him in. Again, I talked about this last week. I would be perfectly okay if the Bills, do a stick and pick at 28 and take Leggett. If we're able to trade down and still bring him in, I'm all on board with that. I think he has such a ceiling to grow into, and he kind of fits like the profile of players that Brandon Beane loves drafting. And that's just kind of like really, really toolsy, high upside players. And sometimes, we have to wait a couple years to see them really blossom. But when we get them that return on the investment, they end up being really great players. And we've seen that with a number of players. I talk about it all the time. Tremaine Edmonds, for what it's worth, Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, we see it recently, Epinesa, just guys that kind of given time to develop a little bit, turned into very valuable players for us. Now we're looking at pick 133. Let's take a look at safeties because that one fell off a little bit for us last time. And again, nobody really standing out that I'm in a rush to get here. So I'll kind of let that one play out again. I do think that cornerback is a sneaky need for us, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a couple later round picks at the cornerback position. Just you have 1 year left for Rasul Douglas. You have Kyer Elam still on the team. Is this the year that he puts together? Not really sure what that's going to look like. So I'm going to go back to the receivers here, and I kind of, regardless of how it happens in this draft, I want to see the Bills walk away with at least 2 receivers. Javon Baker is somebody I'm very high on, and for me, it's pretty hard to calculate where he's going because I see him go anywhere from like the second round in these mock drafts to like the tail end of the 4th round. So don't really know what to expect from him there, and popping up on the board. So I'm going to go there right now. And then we're back up with pick 133. We've already got our 2 receivers. We have our defensive tackle that I wanted. Still kind of waiting on the safety position. And I think that we're going to stay at the top here. And running back is something that I'd be willing to wait on. But I think I would like to see the Bills be able to bring in a running back that's going to kind of play that second fiddle right now and not have it be somebody rotating every year. You get that, cost control option. We're going to lock that pick in right there, Audric Estime. And so pretty happy with these results overall. I think that's about what I would expect with a stick and pick scenario of, again, depending on how it shakes out. I'm personally fully expecting the Bills to be taking a defensive player first, whether it's a defensive tackle or an edge. I think this is just too deep of a wide receiver draft for them to really be prioritizing that in the first round unless they do make the crazy move to go up the board. Well, that's going to be it. Next time we talk to you, we're going to be discussing some of the draft picks that we brought in. Might have a couple live reaction videos over the weekend just with some of the picks that we make. So make sure you're subscribed so you're not missing any of those. We made it. By the time you're seeing this, we're going to be 1 day away from draft day. So enjoy it. Give me some feedback on this mock draft. Feel free to hit us with any of your opinions on what's happened in the draft. Looking forward to it, and we will see you on the other side. As always, go Bills.